MMA fans, welcome back to Carlo Prusa MMA. Today, I'm with mixed martial artist, UFC veteran, the Hitman. He is Dan Moret, and coming off of a great victory, first round KO victory over Raush Manfio over at XFC in Detroit, Michigan, just a few weeks ago. You've had some time to process it now. For your overall takeaways from your performance.
Man, felt good. It's nice to be in there for a little longer, get some ring time. Been off for a little bit before that, just trying to get some action. And but obviously you can't be too upset about getting in there, getting a win in under a minute. Be able to pull off that submission and get that done. So, man, it felt great. It was good to get back in there. I felt sharp, felt good, and obviously to fight a guy like that, it was nice to get an opportunity to fight a high level guy, a world class guy, again, and to prove that I'm among the best in the world and still can compete with those guys and beat those kind of guys. So it was a good feeling to get that win for sure.
Obviously, he's known for his hands. He's a very dynamic striker. Going into the contest, did you imagine that there was a good chance of someone getting KO'd?
Yeah, I thought he would engage in the stand up. He's got a good right kick, and the boxing is sharp. His hands are good, obviously. But I thought I could outstrike him. I thought I had a little more strategy than him, and he didn't have a huge volume to his game. He doesn't have a ton of output. So I thought I could outpoint him, get him to reach with the right hand and land my left hand against him. I thought I would be able to land some kicks as well. Things just kind of developed fast in the fight, and I was able to see some things and knew there was an opportunity there and, capitalize on it quicker than kind of what I thought. I thought we'd be in there and going to battle for a while. I knew he was tough, had gone to decision a lot of times, so a lot of long fights in his career, obviously fighting tough guys and world-class guys. You don't usually get them out of there early. So I was prepared for 15 minutes. I thought I was going to have to outpace him for 15 minutes, avoid the big right hand, avoid the right kick, and try to score and find my opportunities. And like I said, I was just able to see some things I noticed in the fight and capitalize on them and get it done early.
You took out a guy that was a PFL champion just a few years ago. With a win of this magnitude, where do you think this puts you going forward? Do you think you're going to get some high-level guys now?
I think so. That's what I've been fighting for the last several years of my career. UFC and Bellator, now beating a guy who was a PFL champion, and still having a Bellator contract. Like technically, I'd be nice to get another one in there with Bellator. It'd be great to get a fight in the PFL as well. Obviously, they know I can compete with those guys and that I stay ready to go. I can take fights on short notice. I took this fight on a couple weeks' notice and stopped the guy who was the champion. So it'd be nice to be able to fight for the PFL. It's obviously one of the top leagues in the world. So to be able to compete for them would be great. I'd love to get over to Japan, compete in Ryzen. I've been able to go over there and corner sometimes, a few times. So it's an incredible experience over there in Japan, and it's always been a dream of mine. Watching Pride coming up and seeing those fights, been a dream of mine to compete over there in front of those fans, in front of those people. So hopefully we can get over there and get one. But I definitely think, it'll be high-level guys and top competition. I'm ready for those fights, and I'm a big win and a big name for someone else, as I'm sure Raush thought they were going to get a good win over a big name and a vet who's been around and been in the biggest leagues. My name carries a little bit of weight to it, so I'm sure guys want to get a win over me. So the opportunities will present themselves. Yeah.
You've been at this world of combat sports for a very long time now, it seems. I think so many people watch the sport in this day and age, but so many people fail to realize 15 or 20 years ago, the landscape of mixed martial arts was a lot different. It wasn't regulated in all places. It was still banned in New York. They had it was still fringe. Do you have any crazy fighting horror stories, maybe of your early fights, early pro fights, early regional fights, and maybe unsafe fighting conditions, mystery opponents, bad medicals, anything nuts?
Yeah, all of those things actually. And that's when I first started fighting. I mean, that was 2007, so a long time ago. And getting in those fights, I was from Minnesota, fought in Iowa. There was no commission at the time, and there was just it was basically like tough man contests. They would have some of the fights be kind of scheduled beforehand, but most of them it was just you show up and whoever's there and ready to go can get a fight, and they match them right there. So you'd step on a bathroom scale, which was sitting on carpet in the back of some bar. And then the owner of the promotion and the guy who's running it had the cage, and the owner of the bar would come back, and without even looking at what anyone weighed or stepped on the scale, they would just kind of point, you versus you, and you versus you. So the weight really didn't matter. They didn't even know what it was. There was no asking like what someone's experience level was. I didn't know how old these guys were. You know, I was a 20-year-old kid, and you know, I was fighting grown men, 30-some years old. I'm just a frail little young man, and these are hairy-chested farmer tough dudes, you know, construction workers, whoever, guys in training of, you know, whatever kind of level. You don't really know at that point. And you just sort of fought. There was no commission. There was no drug testing. There was no blood testing. You don't know what this person has or where they've been. You just know you're going to get in a fight with them that night. And, you know, there's a lot of that coming up. Even when I came to Minnesota and there was regulated fights, I mean, I had 14 amateur fights. And I think only like 2 of them are on my SureDog or Tapology or whatever. When you look them up, most of those fights were not under any kind of commission. They weren't ever recorded or sanctioned really fights. You just showed up and fought somebody. Sometimes I had an opponent's name beforehand, and a lot of times they would switch right there the day of. They'd say, hey, look, you're closer to weight than this guy. Same day weigh-ins on most of these fights. Hey, you're closer to this guy. You're going to have you fight him instead. And there wasn't really a question of like, well, where's he trained and how many fights does he have? What sort of experience levels he has? You just said yes, and you fought whoever showed up. So I fought guys of all different sizes and types, experience levels, under different rules all the time. It was always different. Some places had amateur rules with no elbows or knees to the head. A lot of times no knees at all. Sometimes you could elbow, sometimes you could knee. Sometimes it was 3-minute rounds, sometimes it's 5. You know, it was in Minnesota for a long time. When I was fighting amateur, they had a 2 submission rule, which was, you know, kind of odd, where a submission, if someone tapped, was only like a 10-8 round, and then you'd get the minute break and start again. They kind of said, well, there's a lot of wrestlers and guys are shooting in and getting guillotined in 20 seconds, and they're not getting experience. So we want guys to get experience so you can tap out once and then restart again, and then you can tap. So I had, like I said, 14 amateur fights. I had 19 finishes in 14 amateur fights. A lot of those fights I finished twice, either 2 submissions or a TKO and a submission, or a TKO and then a knockout, or a submission and then a knockout. Kind of crazy rules. So had a little bit of all of it. You know, fights switching the last second, fights falling through. I had so many of them fall through, both amateur MMA, professional boxing. A lot of the fights fall through. So like you said, been at this for a while, so I've seen a little bit of all the craziness.
Did you ever envision when you first started this that MMA would turn into what it turned today?
Yeah, I thought so. You know, it had kind of taken off when I started fighting. Was a little bit after kind of Stephan Bonner, Forrest Griffin on Spike TV, and you know, we were watching the guys, Chuck Liddell, Tito, Randy Couture, the big stars of the early day when 205 was kind of the main weight class, and those guys were huge in the sport. So it had taken off quite a bit before I started. Obviously, it was not anywhere near the level it is now, but I knew that it would become one of, if not the most popular sports in the world. It's something that everyone can relate to. You know, other sports, people can't relate to them all over the world. You know, other than soccer or football, is pretty much, you know, known around the world. Everyone can kind of do it. Everyone mostly has access to a ball, but otherwise basketball, they don't have hoops and balls everywhere around the world. Hockey, certainly not. There's not ice everywhere. You know, in the middle of Africa, they're not playing hockey. You know, in the Middle East, they're not really playing too much hockey. They don't play American football. Tennis isn't everywhere. You know, all these other kind of sports aren't all over the world, but everyone in the world understands fighting. Everybody knows that. And people know it even if you don't watch it or train it or understand. When 2 people are trying to hurt each other, everyone knows that. That's just in human nature. It's instinctual, something we've done since the beginning of mankind. So everyone understands it, know it. So I knew that it would become, you know, one of the biggest sports in the world, and it certainly has. And I think it will become the biggest sport in the world, the most popular. It's this is the most exciting, for sure, and it's the most accessible for anybody. Anybody can learn how to fight. Anybody can train, and everyone understands it. So I think it'll be the biggest sport in the world.
Before your time in the UFC, you did really well in the regional circuit, providing King of the Cage, RFA, LFA, and all of a sudden you got a shot in the UFC against a very well-known guy in Gilbert Burns. Do you remember the phone call? Remember where you were when you got the phone call saying you have the opportunity to fight in the UFC?
I do. I certainly do. It's a memory that'll stick with me for the rest of my life. I actually was training in Phoenix here, and I had a tough week of training. My rounds in the sparring did not quite go as they wanted to on the Saturday, and this was before that event in the UFC. The Saturday before that Sunday, I was out kind of torturing myself after not feeling great about the sparring rounds, doing some mountain running, some training there, trail running out on the mountains. Was up on the top of the mountain, ran one, came up to the top of the other one. Spent several hours out there that day, kind of pushing myself and going through how things went, and got to the top of the one and had a missed call from my manager, and gave him a call back. He said, "What are you doing?" I told him, I'm out on top of a mountain right now. I'm out trail running. He told me, he said, "Don't fucking hurt yourself. You're fighting the UFC next weekend." And I let out a giant roar and a scream at the top of this mountain. It something I've been working for decades and training for and hoping for. And I was in the right place at the right time to be able to be in position to take that fight. I've been training hard, was at the right gym, had the right management, doing all those things. I got that call and was ready to go. And what a feeling to get that call and to know. I remember calling my father right after getting off the phone with my manager and telling him that we made it. We did it. We're in the big show, and we're getting a chance in there. And just letting him know that he had let me build his whole basement at his home back in Minnesota, where I'm from, into a gym, one whole side, a weight room, rubber flooring, squat racks, dumbbells, kettlebells, machines, all the stuff. The other side, full mats, zebra mats in there, wall pads, heavy bags, everything. So he believed in this crazy dream that I had and supported me from the start of it. And my father's not the kind of guy who's into fighting or wrestling or any of that kind of stuff. He wasn't into it. I was sort of the lone wolf of my family that got into that stuff, and he supported me in it the whole way. Never told me, "Don't do this," or "It's not an idea." Never once told me to shut up when I was hitting that heavy bag at 2:00 in the morning, chasing a crazy dream. So I was able to call him and tell him we made it there. So being on top of that mountain, sunset, getting that call from my manager, then getting a call from my dad and tell him something real special. And then very careful night walk down on that mountain, try not to twist an ankle or fall down and scrape yourself up before you're going to get in a fight in the UFC the next weekend.
So many people watch the sport in 2024, but I think a lot of people realize, or fail to realize rather, the sacrifices it takes to be a mixed martial artist. I don't think people realize that many fighters aren't making millions of dollars to fight, even if you're in the UFC, even if you're these high level promotions. Some guys work, they have kids, they do all this stuff, they train on the side. How have you had to deal with the sacrifices over your career, and what was the motivations for you to keep through and keep pushing?
Yeah, I've had to do all that stuff. You're getting a job working at the door of a bar at night so that you can train during the day. You're getting odd jobs. I've had a bunch of support and help from a bunch of different people throughout my career, working different jobs, whether I was putting up chain link fence with a kid I wrestled with in high school. His dad owned a company, and then going from there to being able to do concrete work with a bunch of different guys that I know in my hometown, Mankato, Minnesota, up in Minneapolis, around that area, just supporting the dream. And you just got to make it work. You're literally, going paycheck to paycheck, trying to work these jobs, make sure you got enough money to pay the rent from whatever guy's letting you rent a room out of his house, probably with a fighter or 3 other ones at the same time. Going to the grocery store with your teammates that you live with and buying the bulk section of stuff to try to get little deals on things, and living off of, things of oatmeal and rice and some chicken breasts and trying to get by, and you sacrifice making a lot of money doing something else for pursuing a dream and something you love, and I spent most of my 20s, not broke, but not making anywhere near the money I could have done pursuing something else. I say this and I tell other guys that it's like, well, if you have a strong mind and a strong back, you'll always be able to make money. So I was always able to make money, and I could have used either one to make more money than I was fighting at the time. But I knew the dream, and the goal was to be able to get to a high level and to push myself and to see where I could take it, to learn as much as I could, to absorb it from all the great coaches I had, and then to be able to pass that on to other people. And that was what motivated me to stick with it and to do it, because now, I'm at the point in my career where I have made some money. I've been able to save, do some things. I do well for myself. And, I sit here right now in my own private studio, my own private gym here in North Scottsdale, that we have affiliated with Fight Ready, where I train most of the time. And I own my own private studio and have a gym where people can train at and do it. And I get to share that knowledge with other people, and I've been fortunate to learn from some of the best coaches in the game, in the world, and put that knowledge to the test and prove that it works and show how it can be done. And I'm blessed to get to share that with other people and to make a good living doing it.
Your gym Fight Ready that you train at, obviously a firepower of a gym, some great names in there from the past. Guys like Benson Henderson's trained there, Korean Zombies trained there. You had Sean O'Malley, Marcus McGee. I think the list goes on and on. But what is it like to train in a facility like that?
I've been fortunate to train in some of the best facilities and gyms around the world with a lot of the best guys in the world. Like I said, it's a blessing. You get to learn so much, not just in martial arts, but in life and being around those people. It's a different kind of energy and a different life, being around highly driven, highly successful, motivated, exciting, vibrant people every single day of your life. It's a different kind of a thing. I don't have to go to a mundane job where people are sad and they're moping around, or everyone's hoping it's Friday soon. Like, everyone is happy to be in the gym. They're excited to be there. Most people understand how lucky and grateful they should be to be able to do something like this for a living. Even if, like you said, you're not making the money you wish you would, or think you should doing it. What a lucky thing to be able to have the skills and have the abilities to basically hang out with your friends and train and hang out at a gym all day. And that's your job. I say like this to people: if you got to pick a class in school that ended up being your job, whether it's a math or science, or whether you're going into geography or this or that, it's like, which kind of area do you like and you want to pursue as a career in your life? I got to choose gym class and recess. That's my job, is to go and hang out at the gym with all my buddies, joke around and work hard. Sure, there's a lot of parts of it that are hard and are difficult, bumps and bruises and things along the way, but most of my life is being as healthy as I can be and being as happy and excited and motivated as I can be around other people who are doing the same. So pretty fortunate to be able to do that and to train at those kind of gyms where, you get the rub. It's another thing to be around people who are successful and are excited to do it and be successful in their lives and their careers, and to get to know that you can compete and hang with the best guys in the world. It's what's necessary for young fighters. I came from a smaller gym. We had huge success in my hometown, and we were able to do that because we pushed each other incredibly hard, and we had a great team. And then from that, I was able to go to the academy in Minneapolis and train with a bunch of guys who are in the UFC and world-class coach and Greg Nelson, and be able to train with those guys and to realize that I can compete with these guys. The guys in the UFC are a little sharper than you. They got a little more experience, this kind of stuff, but you can hang with these dudes and you will be able to compete with and beat guys like this in the near future. It's a big deal for be able to do that and to train at those kind of gyms. So it's awesome to see that. Like I said, now the landscape of the sport has changed so much where there's great gyms all over the place. When I was young, we'd have to travel an hour and a half, 2 hours to find a black belt or someone that was high level to train with and do it. And you'd have to plan these trips and do that. It's like, I'm here in Phoenix and Scottsdale area. It's like, you can throw a rock and hit a jiu-jitsu gym with a black belt in it, and most of them have several. So guys nowadays are fortunate to do that. You just hope that they realize that and are still willing to put in the effort and train and do all the extra stuff, because sometimes it's easy to take that stuff for granted and just kind of like, I go to practice and that's enough, right? It's like, well, no, a lot of us got really good because we were willing to train and do the mundane stuff over and over and over again. And, we went to jiu-jitsu class every time we had it. And we went to kickboxing and Muay Thai class, and we did that stuff. We didn't just go to the team practice and that was it. Like, there's extra to be done. So I'm fortunate to have trained in the gyms around those kind of people, and also fortunate to have had to train by myself in my dad's basement to know that the hard work is the part that gets you there, not just being around high level people.
Before we close up, here's a couple more questions for you, Dan. You fought on XFC. Promotion's gone through a rebirth. Bit of a different organization now. They've done a couple events. Looks like they're just stacking cards. I mean, the last 2 months have been absolutely loaded for a regional show. How do they treat you overall? What did you think of the new product?
Man, it was good. The show was well run. The promotion, everything was good on it, and they put together great cards, like you're saying. When I told you I got this fight, I'm doing it, and then they figure I'm going to be, if I'm not, the UFC fight or Bellator, they figure, well, you're the main event then for sure. And then when they found out who I was fighting, well, they figured I was the main event for sure. And I said, I'm the co-feature fight. We're third on the list. I was like, there's several other UFC veterans and people in there. I'm not the only name on this card. I'm not just me and my opponent are the only names on the card, but there's a lot of other people. So the overall experience was great. The venue was great. The hotel was great. The staff, everything ran smooth. So I think XFC is going to continue to put on big fights and bring in big names and people and prospects too. So it's a great organization and a beautiful step for people to get to the next level and to get to the Bellator, UFC, PFL, Ryzen, One Championship, whatever those are. And yeah, hopefully I get to go back there and win the title.
Now, at 37 years old, has the mindset, has the ultimate goal, has the vision, has it changed for you at all? I mean, is the dream or goal maybe still to try to chase the bigger shows, or you're at a point where maybe you're thinking about the bare knuckle side of things or different platforms to ease you out of the sport?
Yeah, I mean, the goal has changed for sure over the years. You kind of understand where you're at and what things are going to be. At 37 years old, am I going to be the UFC champion of the world? No, that's not going to happen. So the why can change. It just has to still be strong, I think, to be able to compete. I think when guys just hang around for too long just because they can't let it go is when problems happen. The thing is, I have the fire to compete, and I want to fight the best guys in the world. So that's kind of the goal. And the why now is to get the biggest fights I can against the biggest names and the best guys. I want to challenge myself and compete against the best guys in the world because I think I can beat them. And there's only one way to prove to me that I can't beat them, and that's to be able to fight them. That's the only one way to prove to myself that I can beat them, and that's to fight them. So that's kind of the goal, is to get the biggest fights I can get and be able to compete as much as I can. I'm super lucky to be still doing this at 37. I turned professional when I was 25. I told myself that I had 10 years at that, being professional. And that was if everything was going well and I was successful, I was healthy, I loved what I was doing, I still had the hunger for it. So I tell people this now, I was like, I'm already on borrowed time. 37 is old for a guy in my weight classes. If you're not a heavyweight, it's tough to get close to 40 and to still compete. So I want to be able to compete as many times as I can before it doesn't make sense for me to do so. Health-wise, financially, everything like that. Knock on wood, fortunately, I've been very lucky to be healthy, to be financially stable in the sport, to understand what I'm doing and to set myself up for success afterwards and have a plan and things that I want to do and pursue afterwards as well. So I'm not kind of lost and sticking around when I don't need to be. The goal is just to be able to compete at as many high-level fights as I can get. And I tell people this, whether it's MMA or whether it's boxing or whether it's grappling or jiu-jitsu or ADCC rules or IBJJF or you want a bare knuckle box, I said, I'll do any and all of it. I just like to compete, and I know how to fight, and I can do martial arts. So you just tell me the rules and the weight. If the money's right, I'll be there and I'll compete. So I'm ready to go for whoever, whenever. Like I said, I just have a desire and a love to compete, and I'm going to let that thing burn as hot as it can for as long as it can, and then we switch gears and do something else.
All right, Dan, last question for you, man. So we're about halfway through 2024. We got another 6 months left in the year. What are the Hitman's goals to close out 2024?
Man, I want to fight and compete as many times as I can. I'd like to fight every month if I could. It's just to be able to fight and compete, travel the world and see it and experience as much as I can from this. Martial arts is a journey and life is a journey, so I'm going to let it take me where it can. And then to just be able to share and help as many other people as I can. My teammates at Fight Ready, the great people I get to train over here at my place inside of Elite U Sports Performance in North Scottsdale. Share with as many people as I can, help as many people as I can. Try to make the world the best place that I can. And man, just just make the most of life. Those are my goals for the rest of the year.
Well, Dan, thank you so much for talking to me today. Wish you nothing but the best, man.
Awesome. Thank you for your time.
That's the Hitman, Dan Moret. I'm Carl Peruzza. Stick around. Awesome, man. I appreciate that. Thank you so much, Dan.